I'd like to know what you think. Hey, welcome back. I have a story to tell you that it's safe for me to tell now because the statute of limitations is well past. This happened in the late 80s. I had a flight instructor named John. I actually really liked this guy. He was a lot of fun to fly with. He was not actually a great flight instructor, it turned out. He was more interested in getting himself to the next level than getting me to the next level, but that's another story for another day. On this particular day, we flew from Hartford, Connecticut, Brainerd Field, out to East Hampton, Long Island. East Hampton is where the rich folks live. It's at the end of Long Island. It really is a nice airport. I enjoyed it. As I review my logbook today, I noticed that flight is 50 nautical miles exactly. It's not over 50 nautical miles. It was listed by my flight instructor as a cross country, a dual cross country. It's actually not a cross country because it's 50 nautical miles. It would have to be 51 to be classified as a cross country. But that's not the point of the story either. We did a couple of touch and goes at East Hampton while we were out there. And on our third one, I asked John, I said, hey, how do we pay the landing fees here? And he said, landing fees? And I said, yeah, it's in the airport facility directory. There's a $3 landing fee for coming here. And he said, oh, let's go home. So we got out of there and went back home. If I remember correctly, the landing fee was $3. And that could be wrong. It's been quite some time, 35 years or more. In any case, there was a landing fee that was in the notes section of the airport facility directory. To be honest with you, we never paid that bill. I never paid that bill, and the company never billed me for that, so I assume we just got away with it. It's a non-towered airport. What are you going to do? Or at least it was back then. To be honest with you, I haven't had a whole lot of trouble with landing fees throughout my aviation career, partially because I'm a general aviation pilot. I don't fly big airliners. I don't fly corporate jets. I fly small, mostly single engine, occasionally twin engine, general aviation aircraft. And I go, by and large, to publicly owned municipal airports, county-owned airports, which are supported by tax dollars. I've just rarely had to deal with landing fees. That's probably true for you too, wherever you are in the country. Most airports that we go to are publicly owned and supported by taxes. Some are privately owned. They have a whole different deal. That's their thing. But for the most part, you know what you know. That's how general aviation works. We fly into Hartford or Poughkeepsie or St. Pete or whatever, and it's a publicly owned airport. I bring this up because I live in Florida, the flight training capital of the world. My good buddy Pat lives in Texas, also a hotbed of general aviation activity, and something seems to be afoot that you might want to be concerned about. I know I am. Landing fees are starting to become a thing, and not necessarily a beneficial thing. Certainly not to us who fly and land at these places. There are a variety of airports in Central Florida which are starting to think seriously about charging landing fees as early as October 1st. Those airports are DeLand Municipal, Orlando Executive, Kissimmee Gateway, just outside of Orlando, Flagler Executive, right along the Atlantic coast, and Ormond Beach Municipal, which is just south of Flagler. They are all considering adding landing fees, and I believe they're looking at $3 per 1,000 pounds. So if you were flying a 172, you're in the $6 per landing range. That may not seem like a big deal, but I think it is, because it's an additional fee tagged on to what we're already paying for fuel and tie downs or hangars and whatever else comes along, maintenance, insurance, blah, blah, blah. There are plenty of costs in aviation, and adding additional cost without providing some sort of benefit for those costs, that's not good for the industry. Let's face it, if it's more expensive to go to place A than it is to go to place B, you're probably going to place B. And that's one of the concerns about this. One airport director who was recently quoted in the press actually said the reason they were considering the landing fees was to limit traffic. Now that can be a problem in a densely populated flight training environment like Florida, where we do get people coming out to an airport and they do a significant number of takeoffs and landings, touch and goes or full stop, and that is understandable. This is a training environment and it does happen a lot. But that can be handled more diplomatically by airport directors talking to each other, getting the flight schools involved, and establishing standard practices that allow everybody the opportunity to do the training they need to do in a place that's reasonably close to home, if not at home itself. But that doesn't mean we have to be charging $3, $6, $9 every time somebody lands the airplane, because that just adds a bunch of cost and complexity. And here's something that really does kind of get under my skin. They're using ADS-B tracking to identify us and know where to bill us. Now, I have a Social Security card in my wallet. I got it when I was 14 years old, and I got my first real job washing dishes in a restaurant. Back then, we didn't get a Social Security card at birth. You went and applied for it when you went to work. I have the same piece of paper today. It has not been replaced. It is a little tattered, but I still have it. The deal was, the only people who would know my Social Security number were me and the federal government. It would go no place else. Nobody else would ever use my Social Security number for any reason. How's that working out for you? Because it never worked out for me. My Social Security number is everywhere, just like yours. Almost everybody I have to do any kind of business dealings with wants my Social Security number, and I pretty much have to give it to them if I want to be successful in that business endeavor. ADS-B was supposed to be between us and the FAA, and that's it. Air traffic control used it, and it was supposed to help us be safer in the air, providing separation, giving ATC tools they needed to make our lives better. It would appear that's not the case anymore. There is some intent to use ADS-B to charge us for flying and landing, which pretty much is the termination of every flight if you're doing it right. I bring this up because I love general aviation, and I suspect you do too if you're watching this video. We are so fortunate to have a system that allows us to fly from coast to coast with tremendous liberty, going pretty much wherever we want to go, with some slight limitations based on what type of equipment we'd need or what procedures we need to follow. But we can fly almost anywhere in the United States, even in the simplest aircraft, whether it has an electrical system or not, whether it has a radio or not. Or we could choose to fly in a zoomy fast aircraft with glass panels, autopilots, all kinds of wonderful stuff. We have tremendous liberty and great privileges to fly. But public airports are already supported by our tax dollars. The FAA funds a big percentage of many of the improvements to runway extensions or resurfacing taxiways, building a new FBO. The State Department of Transportation also has a tendency to kick in, so many of these cities aren't nearly on the hook as much as they might want us to believe. They may not be making a great profit, but that might have more to do with management and the utilization of the space they have available to them. My point is a simple one. I don't think this is a good idea. I really don't. I do think it's going to impact what happens at these airports, just like it did for me and my instructor, John, all those years ago. As soon as he found out there's an airport landing fee, let's go back home. Let's not go there. What if you own a business on that field? What if you own a restaurant and you depend on people coming in to buy your burgers and shakes and fries and fried clams or whatever? What if you own an avionics shop, a maintenance shop, any type of business based on the airport that requires people to feel comfortable coming in, flying in, taxiing up to your business and buying your products or services? That's why you're in business. That's why you're paying rent and insurance to the airport, to be in business there and not downtown. Now, the analogy I might make, imperfect as it is, that airport is a publicly held facility. It is managed by the public trust. It is funded by tax dollars. This is not much different than the road that runs through downtown. If your city was to pass a rule saying you now have to pay a $3 per 1,000-pound toll every time you drive through downtown, that might have an impact on the businesses downtown, as people say, but I have to go to work. I already drive in and have to pay to park. Why do I have to pay a fee just to use the road, which my gas taxes are already going to maintain? Why are you doubling down on this? That's definitely going to have an impact on your downtown area. That's going to mean less traffic. That's going to mean businesses struggle. Some of those businesses will close. The airport is not a magical place. It's not significantly different. The economy is the economy. If we pass rules and fees intentionally to limit the number of people who are coming into the facilities we manage, that means fewer customers. That means fewer sales. That means fewer jobs. Everything snowballs in the wrong direction. I don't know if this is coming to your town or not. It's certainly coming to my area. It is up to us to go ahead and let our civic leaders know this is not something we're happy about. This is not something we're interested in. We've made an investment in our towns to purchase airplanes that stay in hangars. We've opened businesses. We rent aircraft. We go to the flight school. We stop in the restaurant at the airport. And if you're going to overcharge us just because you can, well, maybe that's not the place we want to go. Look, I still love general aviation. I love everything about it. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful activity. And just like the high school kids I work with, they start seeing they've got a future. They see employment opportunities down the road. They get more serious about their studies. They do things that really are beneficial to them because aviation really does have a positive impact on people. I sincerely hope, from the bottom of my heart, the folks who are behind this rethink using our ADS-B information as a means of tracking us down and billing us to land at facilities that are already taxpayer supported and already get significant support from the state and the federal government. I don't think this is a good idea. Do you have an opinion on landing fees at publicly owned airports? Leave a comment down below. Tell us your story. Do you have landing fees at your airport? Are they talking about landing fees at your airport? And maybe more important than either of those things, how do you feel about ADS-B out, which is mandatory in certain airspace, being used to track you down so that they can send you a bill? Frankly, I'm not a fan. We'll see you next time.